Hello there, and many thanks for joining us again on the program. In the last episode, we started consideration of the provisions of the National Electoral Offences Commission Bill 2021, which was quietly passed by the Senate last week amidst all the drama and furore surrounding the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. The Electoral Offences Commission Bill is a very close cousin of the Electoral Act Amendment Bill and deserves equal attention from Nigerians. Otherwise, we will all wake up one day to discover that the sword of Damocles, in the name of a piece of legislation, is dangling over our heads. In our previous intervention, we looked at the membership of the proposed commission and the appointing authority, which is reserved exclusively for the president. This prompted us to question how independent the commission would be if members are to be appointed by the president and from statutory departments, agencies, and ministries of government. We also looked at the functions and powers of the commission, as well as some of the offenses and the prescribed penalties or punishment for them. We shall continue from there today. In addition, we shall do a general appraisal of the ability of the proposed law to stem electoral fraud and violence in the absence of a credible electoral process, which is based on well-grounded electoral laws. The decision of the National Assembly last week to jettison the provision for the electronic transmission of election results in the Electoral Act Amendment Bill is seen by many as a major drawback for any effort at curtailing electoral fraud and other related crimes that are associated with electioneering. In fact, the denial of electronic transmission of results is tantamount to guaranteeing equal, free, and fair rigging of elections by all and for all. This is what the politicians want, and this is what they voted for in the National Assembly. And let's be clear about this. It is a political elite game and agenda that cuts across all the political parties. Never mind all the claims to the contrary by some of them. How, for instance, can the lawmakers reconcile their rejection of advances in electoral technology with their desire to curb electoral malfeasance to guarantee the credibility of elections? Well, we shall jump into the discussions straight away after this time out. All right, let's get to meet our guest analysts on the program today, two of them. First, from my immediate left is Mr. Afam Osigwe. Mr. Osigwe is a senior advocate of Nigeria. San, thank you so much for joining us, and congratulations. I don't think we have met since your conferment with the prestigious title of Senior Advocate of Nigeria.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
And thanks for inviting me.
I should also say that Afam Osigwe is a former General Secretary of the Nigeria Bar Association, NBA. He's joined by Godson Okoye. Mr. Okoye is a national chairman, United Democratic Party, UDP. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Presidential candidate. Thank you very much for having me as well.
Okay, Mr. Osigwe, so let's kick off on this note. What would be your general impression of the National Electoral Offences Bill 2021? Let's take note here that that bill has been passed by the Senate, but is still pending in the House of Representatives.
Well, the National Assembly, especially the Senate, has never ceased to disappoint me in their propensity for enacting laws that are either useless or are not well thought out, or are not being passed in the best interest of the society, or fail to take cognizance of the depleting nature of public finances that will sustain some of the commissions and agencies they seek to set up. And the opacity in their mode of operation in not engaging constructively with the major stakeholders and the public in passing such laws shows that some of these laws are self-serving, are not intended to be in the best interest of society, and they show the regressive nature of the thinking of people who get elected into the legislature. Their laws are most times inelegantly drafted, are not forward-looking, are unnecessary, and also, in some cases, either offend provisions of the Constitution or bring about situations that are already covered by some other sections of the law, all in the name of, I sponsor so many bills. That's my general statement about the law.
You have thrown so many things on the table in that your single intervention. So, for instance, you are saying that the creation of that commission will be an unnecessary addition to the bureaucracy.
Absolutely. Now, a few months ago, the federal government indicated, or I was made to believe, yes, that there may be need to look at the Orosonia report, which recommended rationalization of federal government ministries and agencies. And the government did that because it understood that public finance is lean. And indeed, the government had continually borrowed to fund infrastructure or to fund the budget. And here again, we are creating a commission to deal with electoral offenses in a nation where we have the Nigerian Police Force. We have the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, the ICPC, enough agencies that could investigate and prosecute this. And we want to pass this law, we have to have the bureaucracy, we have to have the council, you have to have so many people, and they will build offices, and then they will be all over Nigeria doing what work. And then you ask yourself, how many electoral offenses have been prosecuted since 1999? And so we fail to look at the problems. We keep flailing in the dark, looking for solutions where they are none. If the issue that the electoral offenses have been on the rise, what have the existing agencies done to prosecute them? Apart from the few instances that EFCC prosecuted persons who received large sums of money in their accounts for purposes of corrupting either electoral officials or inducing people to do one thing or the other in the election. What has the police done? What has the Office of the Attorney General done? What has everybody done? And we think that if we suddenly create this commission and then propose a 20-year sentence, a fine of running into millions, it will be a silver bullet. Do we ever, when we propose to set up bills that will create commissions, do we actually try to look at the financial implication of establishing such agencies? And if the government policy is looking at rationalizing agencies, where does this fit in? Are we not creating another redundant agency that tomorrow will have a duty overlap with other agencies and that may only actually end up creating food and job for the boys? Are we really forward thinking?
Okay, I'll get back to you, Mr. Osigwe, and maybe you should choose this while I go to Mr. Okoye. For instance, would it make any difference if this commission is made, say, a department in the Independent National Electoral Commission? We'll come back to you. But Mr. Okoye, let's get your view on this bill and the proposed creation of this Electoral Offences Commission, because for a very long time, you politicians have always said that the Independent National Electoral Commission has been is overburdened and it needs to be unbundled and for various aspects of its work to be carried out by other bodies. Is this the movement towards that? Do we see this as the solution?
Thank you very much for your beautiful analysis and your intro. Essentially, you have taken the word from my mouth. And my colleague here has put it very beautifully and elegantly. The problem of the country is that we appear to have people that don't think about the country when they do things. We have at so many fora, so many seminars and all that. INEC is overburdened. Unbundle INEC. This is not unbundling INEC. creation of a commission, you might as well call it a tribunal. Electoral Offences Tribunal, so that we'll be sure what we're doing. For goodness sake, I mean, what are the police people doing? And we have said so many times that we don't have enough policemen that can do investigative work and prosecutorial work and then crime fighting. We don't have those. So all you need to do, before the number of men we have in the police force, that Nigeria does not have up to 500,000 policemen is a scandal. And that's why, you see so many things happening in different ways. Now, to the issue of electoral offenses, and like he also pointed out, how many of them have thoroughbred, serious-minded legislative aides that can throw up what you will call serious legal draft work? You don't have them. Most of the time, they are just their relations, a cousin, a nephew, a niece, and they are there just for the purpose of let it be that I empowered somebody. And not for the purpose of doing the legal drafting. Not the purpose of doing the real law. And of course, I've said so many times, how many of them even understand what law is? The people that are there. You don't even need to be a lawyer to understand what law is. You ask, okay, you're a lawmaker, how can you make what you don't know? You're a lawmaker, but you don't know what law is. Law, for goodness sake, is supposed to be used as an instrument of social engineering and re-engineering. And like he said, forward-looking. Government is supposed to provide the direction for people to go. And not when the people move in a particular direction, you now go to make laws that will either stifle their movement or make them look stupid. What they have just done is an exercise in futility. It's of no use. What you need to do, INEC does delimitation of constituencies, registration of voters, just like that is ongoing now, and then conducts election. And registers political parties and manages them. For goodness sake, that's a humongous burden. Now, how many people do they have in INEC? And of course, it shows every time we want to have an election. You see the number of people they employ, ad hoc workers. By the time you finish that, it's about 3 times the number of people that are in INEC, and we still end up with a bad result in most elections. So, for goodness sake, look at this thing sometimes from the eyes of the practitioners, not necessarily the people that are legislators. There are other stakeholders within the political process that can do this. What we need is political party registration and management commission. There has to be a commission that does that, because registering political parties and managing the activities of politicians and their activities is enough tax on its own. Putting it in the hands of INEC, and then they have to handle an election, and you still expect those elections to be clear and transparent. That's an uphill task. And these are the things we keep getting wrong. That we have done it for starters doesn't mean that at a particular point you normally have transitional period. You have a period that you try things and say, okay, let's give it a try, 5 years, 10 years, and then we change. But once you start something in Nigeria, it stays that way. Why we keep talking about political party registration commission is, at a time, everything about crime fighting was done by the police. But when crime started having so many became hydra-headed, there had to be the one that had to do with drugs, NDLE, had to be formed. Most of their staff came from the police. After some time, you have Road Safety Commission, so that issues of traffic and vehicular management, the issues went to the Road Safety Commission. Now, then you have issues like company registration. At the time, it used to be Department of Trade. But because of the upsurge in registration of companies and business activities going on, there was need to create Corporate Affairs Commission to handle the issue of registration and management of companies. These are the things we're talking about, and that's how government should be upward-looking, forward-looking, so that you guide the citizens right. And not when the citizens are there, you in fact act like you are even ignorant, more ignorant than the citizens. The government, with the paraphernalia of officialdom, has what it takes to point the direction for people to go, the positive direction. Now you're talking about electoral offenses, and who is going to do the appointment? Already, like you have said, that's bias. You can only direct the commission to who you want them to arrest. And it's always, like I keep saying, the law is always too strong to catch the weak, but it's always strong enough to catch the weak. It's strong enough to catch the weak, but it's too weak to catch the strong. This is what we go through in Nigeria all the time. So creation of this commission is just an exercise in futility.
It appears to me from your thought process, yes, that there wasn't enough consultation
do they ever consult anybody?
done
Do they ever consult anybody?
Because
People
I
just
mean,
sit down and assume they know everything.
for this bill to have gone the whole hog, there must have been public hearings and
Public
inputs
hearing
from
is not
political
what,
parties.
you see, when you do public hearing, that's not what consultation means. Public hearing is just for the comfort of for the benefit of the people that are senators. You must come to that, and of course, try and go to that place when there is public hearing. What you go through from the gate to that place, even if you have something to contribute, you just walk away. It's very frustrating. So if you want to do public hearing, the way they are doing it is not the way it's done. That you copy what other people have done doesn't mean in your environment it must work. We don't copy everything line, hook, and sinker. And that's what we do in Nigeria. And then by the time you start practicing it, you see it won't work. Government is supposed to look at, and by government I mean both the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature. The legislature is part of government. But you see them every day, they debate, and they talk about government as if government is one other body that is somewhere. They are part of the government. But most of them don't even know it. They are an arm of government. The executive arm, the legislative arm, and the judiciary. These are the three arms of government. But they talk about government as if something that is outside, and of course it is because most of them really don't know it. Do you understand? So you need to have people that have the knowledge of some of these things to get it right. I am not saying that the people there are not knowledgeable, but those that are doing the serious work, you can count them on maybe one or two hands. So that those are the people that have the serious legislative, that they will do the research that is needed to draft laws that are positive looking and that will create the kind of change we need.
Mr. Sigwe, you spoke earlier on of the inelegant nature of bills that are drafted and passed in the National Assembly. And it appears that you think that this is one of them.
Well, it's a general malay that affects a number of the bills that come from there. I'll give you a simple example. The Terrorism Prevention Act 2011, I think, was amended. You see it in two different laws. So you're amending a law, you don't take the principal act, amend it, and put it there. And then sometimes there's a reference to a section which does not exist. And then sometimes certain words are not properly defined, or some sentence structure as such as to lead to more confusion and ambiguity as to what the lawmaker meant. But that's not my major problem with this bill, sir. The National Assembly had an opportunity in amending the Electoral Act 2010 or 11. He said he wanted to stop electoral offences. And it is common knowledge that rigging of election has moved from polling centers to the collation centers. And you vote down electronic transmission of results, which will eliminate people going to lie in wait, to people taking away results from polling units to collation centers, to alter results, to falsify figures. You eliminate it. And you claim that there is no data coverage, and you take away the independence of INEC by subjecting their decision-making process to decision of what MBC, which is headed by government appointees, and then back to National Assembly before approval. In other words, INEC can't take a decision, so they can only make a recommendation. And he did not consult the same INEC to find out. And then he puts a lie to the entire electoral process, because we said the card reader works with data. And it's supposed to work in all polling units, and it's supposed to connect to the internet. And we've accepted it as a way of verifying registered voters. And it's been in use. And he turned around to say that there is no data coverage in more than 50% of Nigeria. So the card reader is a scam.
It's a fraud.
And then the INEC says, no, that's not correct. There is data coverage. So who do we believe? And yet, people are doing so many other things, registering for JAM, doing so many things online, doing computer-based tests for JAM exam in this same nation. So when it comes to some things that are educational or economic, and then you say there should also be mobile banking, cashless banking, and people are doing it using USSD to buy recharge card to do so many things. But the moment it comes to election, data stops working. You can't transmit it. And I heard some nonsensical argument about Yahoo boys being able to manipulate it. So how much are we investing in cyber security? What are we doing if it will be so easy for them to do that? Until we get serious, people will be a laughing stock. And I need to say this, sir. We are dissipating so much energy, making laws to make sure that the electoral process works. And we are neglecting the areas that matter. Public welfare and security. We are neglecting areas that talk about commerce and industry, business, economy. We amend the constitution all the time to limit time for filing the election, pre-election, this, And we emphasize giving so much judicial time to the electoral process to the disadvantage of the real things that matter. And before I came in here, I took a call from a friend who sought to know from me and said, look, why is it that foreigners doing business in Nigeria insist that their dispute resolution should take place in either the ICC in France or in London for arbitration? Why are people even saying that their litigation should not take place in Nigeria? And I say it is because of the delay in our judicial system. So if you go to the Supreme Court, for example, the justices are compelled to immediately hear electoral appeals. And because liberties are involved, the next one they give priority to are the criminal cases. And the commercial transactions are suffering. And I read a report last week that shows that there was a decline of about 30% in foreign direct investment in Nigeria in 2020. Of course, when your climate does not have a dispute resolution mechanism that works, that it gives confidence to people that if there's a dispute, they will be resolved. That I will not be bogged down by people making use of judicial process to waste time, and there's no corruption or inefficiency in the system. They will not come there. They will put their money elsewhere. They will put them in areas that will not be risked. And we keep spending so much money doing public hearing that is just a farce. If you ever went to a public hearing and looked at the reports, you see that nobody looked. It's a jamboree. And people are not even allowed to talk. Yeah. You can't, like he said, they announced a public hearing that you can't get into the National Assembly, and this is a public place. So until we get serious, by now, our electoral process should have been such that we can't be talking about rigging all the time. Rigging. Who makes it possible? Who gives correct election result sheets to people and brings the fake ones to the voting areas? And the police are in these places. So most times, these persons who commit these electoral offences are arrested by the police and sometimes the military or even the SSS. Why are they not investigating them? A few years ago, the Nigerian Bar Association offered to provide lawyers pro bono to help prosecute these electoral offences. Nothing ever came out of it. No charge files were made available by the police. So if the issue is that the police are prosecuting it and they're overwhelmed and that there is need to do this, at the end of the day, is this Electoral Offences Commission, whatever it is going to be called, turned into a police? Section 215 says that there shall be only one police force for the entire federation. That no other law shall establish another police. Are we not trying to establish another police by another name? Is it going to carry out investigation? Or is it not the same police that will investigate and hand over to it? Why wouldn't that same police go to the court? There has been lack of political will, because in our nation, one of the biggest problems we have is lack of accountability. People are not held accountable for their actions. People snag ballot boxes and they walk away. They get elected into the house. They commit myriads of electoral offenses. And sometimes the police who are sent on election duty end up attacking the innocent people and protecting those who perpetrate violence and rigging. We must call a spade a spade. Until we focus our attention on the real things that matter, we'll continue wasting time on such things.
Talking about,
and let me also say that I don't agree with my friend who was saying that we have created too many bodies. Creating another body to register and manage political parties will just be saying when it suits us, we should support it. It's the same thing. I don't see what is the big deal in registering political parties and managing them. A unit in INEC can take care of them. If we do the right thing, we don't need to. We say we need to have a
which brings me back to my first question.
Yes,
do you think that if a commission of this nature is created as a unit in INEC, it will effectively carry out its job?
Okay, are you aware that the body that does money laundering, financial crimes in the UK is a department in the Metropolitan Police? So why INEC? When INEC does not have investigative powers, why not in any of the law enforcement agencies like the police? Why not a special unit? But let it not turn like SARS anyway. Why not a unit that will handle the prosecution? Why not a special unit in the office of the Attorney General to prosecute electoral offences? And Attorney General giving powers to the state Attorney General to do the same thing. Why must we keep creating commissions? Tomorrow they'll buy official cars
in a situation
them,
where you
buy
have
official residence for them, have all the perks of office in an economy that needs to spend less on sustaining public office holders.
Well, but in situations where you have an Attorney General who is a political appointee, how independent would that unit be?
Unfortunately, every Attorney General will be a political appointee. It is how the person decides to discharge the duties of his office and what the government prioritizes. It's not about every Attorney General. Let's not pretend. There's a suggestion that the office of Attorney General and Minister of Justice be split. It may not always work because there are still going to be human beings that will be there. my take is that if the holders of the office are very professional in doing their duty and take less seriously the political nature of their job and pay more attention to the professional aspect of their work, the work will be done. It doesn't matter because you're not going to get them from mass. And let's not pretend that there will not be some degree of politics. What's the name of this guy? I replaced Sessions, Senator Sessions as Attorney General under Trump, shows that even in America, the office of an Attorney General can be politicized. So it's not as if it's a peculiar thing to us, but at the end of the day, in carrying out the functions, to what extent do you allow politics to play a role? To what extent do we allow fairness, professionalism to guide what we do? So my take is that the commission is unnecessary. If the offenses are to be created, let them be created as offenses. Let the police that actually have the primary duty of policing prosecute them. After all, they prosecute other offenses in magistrate court and the high court. Why should electoral offenses be a special breed of offenses that the police is not allowed to prosecute?
Mr. Okoye, there is this thinking that perhaps there should be a lot more alignment between the Electoral Act Amendment Bill and this Electoral Offences Commission Bill.
Yeah.
There seems to be some misalignments right now. But perhaps the Electoral Act Amendment Bill should have been passed first before the Electoral Offences Commission Bill, so as to address some of the issues that Barrister Osigwe talked about earlier on.
You see, for as long as we make laws for achievement of particular political purposes, we will never get it right. Laws are supposed to be neutral instruments that can be used for positive development of society. But when you make laws just because you are targeting a particular political purpose, you're already blurred in your viewpoint, in your vision of what you want to achieve. Like you said, it could be alignment or disalignment, but for me, the commission is unnecessary. Like you said, a special branch could be created in the police, but that burdens the police again. And it dovetails into what I've been saying. We need more hands. We need more men in the police force. When you say, okay, modern police force, professional and all that crap they talk about all the time, you still need boots on ground by virtue of the size of the country, the nature of the country, and our stage in the developmental trajectory. You need more hands. There must be boots on ground. If you have the required number of people that can look at some of these things, you may not need to create a particular commission just to handle electoral offenses. It's highly unnecessary. A special branch could be created in the police, but you need more men to do it. But then, like we have always said, managing political parties and managing an election, they are very burdensome things. I've seen them at close range. INEC is always overworked. INEC is always stressed. And in the end, you end up with a bad result, like we are now. At the time they say register political party, at the time they say they register some. And INEC that says they will obey every court order now has a judgment of, unanimous judgment of Court of Appeal, and they say they will not obey it. Because they have taken an action, and the Court of Appeal said, nobody says you cannot take this action, but there is due process. It's like a policeman arresting a criminal who he probably knows is a criminal. You arrest him and you shoot him because you know he's a criminal. That's wrong. Or you take him to court and the court says, this man is guilty, he's hereby stated, and you shoot him because the court says no. You have to allow him the right of appeal. And or maybe he says he will not appeal. The court now sets a date for his sentencing, or maybe the day he was executed, or the day. Those are the things you do. Not because you know he's a criminal, you bring him to your police station, you shoot him. That's wrong. There has to be due process. Just the same way there was a process for you to register parties. There must be a process for you to deregister parties that will probably even end up in the court. That you now say, these are the facts we have about this party. Judgment of court, these parties are deregistered. Just like a winding up of companies. If you know a company is being used as a machinery of fraud, you don't just work out. CSE cannot come up and say they have done it. No. You have to go to court, lift the veil of incorporation, and then look at who had, and they show evidence of the fraud. And the court says, okay, this company is liquidated. So for somebody to stand up, that's still carryover of military mentality. You wake up and say parties are deregistered. That power in the constitution is not self-effective. So you have to go through a process. And that's what the Court of Appeal said. Unanimous judgment of the Court of Appeal says, what you did is wrong. And you didn't follow due process, it's therefore void. And INEC turns around and said they will not obey it. And then they put one nebulous appeal at the Court of Appeal, at the Supreme Court, signed by a non-staff of the Court of Appeal, which the registrar has written. So technically, they don't even have an appeal. There is no stay of execution on the judgment. It has not been upturned, but they said they will not obey it. But in another situation, I saw their spokesperson the other day, that they will obey every court judgment, every court order. What are we talking about? So, like he said, the political will is lacking in doing all this. So that's the essential issue. Whether you create commissions or you create crimes and all those things, once you don't have the political will to say, do the right thing. Like people keep talking about the Constitution every day. They say the Constitution was done. And I ask people, how many people wrote the American Constitution that is still working till today? They've amended it several times, yes, but it's still working. It was only written by one man, James Madison, and then Thomas Jefferson looked at it, and they went to George Washington and said, this is the Constitution, and they say it's okay. The Americans have still respected that Constitution till today. But every day we go to the Constitution because we lack the political will. Every day people are saying, you don't want, because we don't have the mindset to do national integration and build a country.
All right. We'll go on a short break. When we return, we'll be going into specific details in the Electoral Offences Commission bill. Stay with us. All right, welcome back. The Electoral Offences Commission bill is what we are looking at today on the program, the second part of our look at that bill. Generally, gentlemen, the bill empowers the Commission to investigate electoral offences, to prosecute electoral offenders, and maintain records of all persons investigated and prosecuted. And the bill, of course, also categorizes the nature of offenses and who the offenders can be. The offenders as individuals, political parties or political associations, election officials, judicial officers, security personnel, employers, and even employees are all encapsulated as offenders, possible offenders in this bill. Now, but the one that seemed to have grabbed so much attention is about the number of years of imprisonment that persons will serve, or fines that they will pay if they are engaged in electoral fraud and all of that. Bryce Osigwe has said that he doesn't see this bill as the silver bullet to solving electoral offences or electoral fraud, crimes that are committed before, during, and after elections. Now, so when you say, for instance, that yes, the Assembly could go ahead and specify electoral offences, but then not create a commission to handle that. How does that work? How will the various agencies of government synergize to ensure that these crimes or these fraudulent practices are brought to the barest minimum? Given our history, our electoral history, our political history, in 2011 alone, there were, as I understand, about 870,000 electoral offences. Hardly any one of them was fully investigated and prosecuted. In 2015, something similar to that, I think about 900,000 electoral offences were documented. But like you said before, nobody was prosecuted or sanctioned for it.
I can get tired of repeating myself. There's lack of political will. And I asked again, I said, are we creating this commission because the police so much who investigated these offenses, prosecuted them, that they lost sight of the other statutory duties? The answer is no. Nobody was interested in investigating them. Why? Because those who perpetrate these electoral offences, either as those who procure those that do them or aid and abet them or beneficiaries of them, are powerful individuals in the society who, as we say in Nigeria, have a way of killing investigations or making sure that nothing happens. And sometimes the police are complicit in it because either because the person on whose behalf or for whose benefit some of these things are done is in one way or the other, they are paymasters, so they don't do anything, sir. And I ask again, sir, for how long? When government made tackling corruption a priority, there was a strident call for there to be a special court, anti-corruption court. So assuming we had created it, electoral offences has been brought to the front burner, we create another one for it. Then terrorism and banditry, we create another court for it. When will it end, sir? What about building the capacity of the existing courts?
Simple.
Deploying technology, funding the police. When NSAS happens and the government agreed to a 5-point agenda, part of the reform was to reform the Nigeria police, build its capacity, increase funding for the police. Have we done that? Have we ensured that much more persons who are not, whose employment is not influenced by politics or some ethnic or religious reasons, are employed in the force to do professional work? So tomorrow you set up this body, they have investigative powers, so policing powers. You start training their men. Tomorrow they say they have set up an academy to train their people. Or the same body we are setting up will say, you know what, because we are just starting, they'll go and still take policemen like EFCC did to still be working in them. And yet we had no confidence in the Nigerian police force as a force to fight economic and financial crimes. And he set up an academy. Until today, policemen still work in EFCC. So he set up this new body. And police will juggle because it will be a special job with PECs. Everybody will hustle to go there to get employed. ICPC will set it up too to fight corruption in the public space. What has happened? Must we keep replicating bodies? Have we taken count of the ones we have established? Must we, for every problem, set up a commission? What is the cost? And before you know, they have offices all over the federation, there will be official vehicles, there will be buildings bought, there will be so many, even commissions set up. So I do not think these are problems. If the intention of that act is to create some offenses hitherto not provided for in the Electoral Act, they should form part of the amendment being proposed in the Electoral Act. They don't need to be in a standalone bill or law. And the body stands saddled with responsibility of doing investigation and carrying out policing work should continue to do its policing work. And if the police IG and the other cadre in the police are not taking electoral offences serious, because you mentioned not well investigated, to what extent too is the police equipped to forensically investigate some of these matters? Because some of them involve high-tech forgery, breach of cyber security, manipulation of electoral, moving of money through accounts, financial crimes. The police should be empowered to do this. We can't continue like this. Tomorrow, if fighting becomes a problem, you have a public fighting special commission to prosecute those who fight in the public. It's becoming absurd, sir.
Mr. Kweye, I'd like us to look at two provisions of this bill, maybe together. That's section 23 of the bill and 32 of the bill. Now, prohibition of damaging character, damaging of character. That's what 23 talks about. 32 talks about prohibition on hate speech. I try and read the very first part of each of them. No person acting for himself or on behalf of any organization or political party or candidate or his agent or other person shall, with an intention of prejudicing the result of any election, damage or defame in any manner the character of any candidate in an election or his family member by making, saying, printing, publishing, distributing, posting, airing or televising or cause to be made, said, printed, published, distributed, posted up, aired or televised before or during election. Any matter in the print or electronic. That's 23. But 32 says a person who in the course of politics or elections uses or directs the use of threatening words, behavior or action, or displays or directs the display of any written material which is threatening or incites violence is guilty of an offense. Some Nigerians have said this is possibly bringing back the hate speech bill which was killed some time ago through the back door.
But you see, each of the sections you read, you prove me right. You make laws just to achieve a purpose. So that people don't say anything about a politician or about a contestant. Or we have law of thought, for goodness sake. The first section you read,
Exactly.
law of thought takes care of it.
Thought of defamation.
Defamation, libel, slander, they're all there. So why do you have to make another? All these are just laughable. It's a show of people that are very unserious, that don't even know what they want to do for the country. If for goodness sake, they lack the idea to project Nigeria to the next century or to the next decade, they should at least concentrate on researching the old laws and then come up with better amendments, reposition them. If they don't have the capacity to jumpstart our legal system in a direction that will ground our serious development, I mean, these things make us look very unserious in the eyes of people. Hate speech or no hate speech, we have laws that take care of, even in the criminal code, you have laws that take care of things like that. Must you bring it out and say hate speech because of this or because of that? For goodness sake, like we've said so many times, unless you have the political will to build a country, all these things will keep emanating. Just like you said, maybe one day we're going to make laws for people that look at you when you're walking, or people that sigh when you go there. There will be a court to try you for sighing. You see, the simple thing is that these people don't have focus. They don't have where to take Nigeria to, and they keep. Why not? They should name more organizations that could be tried when there's an election. And one philosopher used to say, if you want people not to pay attention to what you're going to do, make it very bulky. You know, read a whole lot of speech, make it boring. By the time you're like 20 minutes, 30 minutes into it, some people are sleeping, some people are dead. By the time you finish, gentlemen, that's a very great speech, and people start clapping. This means nothing. But it's an exercise in futility. If we really want to mean business, there are things to be done, like you said. If there are offenses that you have not covered, and of course, with clear focus, you put them in the Electoral Act. Empower the police to do the investigation. Okay, like about 4 years ago, a friend of mine was talking about forensic lab. And he went to some people in the police, and some of them were asking the fellow, what are you really talking about? What is lab? We have one in Yaba. And he was saying, listen, we need a forensic lab. We need to have a database where this thing can be collected, and you can analyze forensically some of these things. For good 30 minutes, they need to understand what the fellow was saying. And he was given so many examples, brought some videos to show, they need to understand it. So you have to empower the police. You have to recruit more policemen. Okay, like you and I. When you used to be in secondary school or primary school, you used to visit police station for sightseeing on Sundays. You go there because they used to be very beautiful. Can you visit any police station these days as a sightseeing or show anybody? Have they built more? And there are human beings that are supposed to be there. You see, people blame the police for sometimes what they do. Fine. There are some of them that are not real good people. There are some of them that are bad. But generally, what has the system provided that will make a reasonable human being function in those environments? How many police stations do you have? How well are they paid? What vehicles do they use to function? Okay, most time, to start from today, look, when you're moving on the road, some places you see some vehicle. Assuming there is crime and that particular group is called, there is a vehicle moving your way, that their vehicle cannot even start. The tires, some of them are flat. Inside the car, there is no fuel. So you see, the issue that we're supposed to take serious, which is the fundamental duty of government, which is security, we don't take it serious. Policemen, we are supposed to have nothing less than 1 million policemen, well-trained. That is, people that are coming out of university will want to work there. That's the only way you can bring some of these things down.
Okay.
Other than that, we can keep running around the circles, keep prosecuting and keep creating commissions and courts and all that. It doesn't make sense. You empower the police and you empower the courts. The courts also need to be empowered. You need to rejig the courts. You need to provide them modern equipment to function. You need to get more people to be in the courts. You know, when you go to court and see what the registrars and the clerks of court do and the judges, you feel sorry for the judges. This, you see, the essential thing we are supposed to focus on, we don't focus on them. People are only, some of the things they are creating, like you've been saying, is because some people are already targeting the perks of office that will come from equipping the offices across the country. Those are the things they are interested in. They are not interested in how does this thing positively rub up on society. These are the things we should be looking at.
Mr. Osigwe,
I think I'd like to comment on this.
Yes, I'd like you to comment on it, but I want you to take it alongside Section 25 of this bill, which deals with prohibition on campaign against national interest. And it says in subsection 1 of that section that no person shall propagate or cause to be propagated anything or information that undermines or is capable of undermining the independence, sovereignty, territorial integrity, or unity of the Federation.
When I talked about inelegant drafting, you probably wondered what I was saying. You just have the 3 sections you've read are clear examples. When you say to harm them in there. So if I'm campaigning against you and an incumbent governor, and I feel you have not managed public finances well, and I said you have run an inept government, very corrupt, nepotistic, this, that, is that hurting your character? So will somebody say I have committed an offense under this section? Will it be called hate speech? We import a word from other places and use them loosely and try to create offenses out of them. When we simply want to say, when you're running against an incumbent, the best you can do is to praise him. We pass such laws. Because they want you to praise your opponents. Yeah. Because I'm not going to, if I want to take over from you, I have to tell the public why I think you're not doing well, why you don't deserve to be re-elected. So when you say harm them, so what is an opponent?
It's law for them to protect them.
Campaigning to take over from an incumbent is supposed to say, so as not to run foul of this. And you see the loose manner, the very vague manner, the provisions are couched. You can, by saying good morning and throwing away your face, be claimed to have committed. What do you mean by campaign against national interest? So if, for example, I want to be president and I say the president has not done well, he has not promoted national unity, he has not done, would that fall for an offense under that section?
Is that without,
or if I say
without amount of felony?
Without amount, if I say the government has borrowed so much and has mortgaged us to foreign countries that are the creditors, without amount to a felony under that section 25(1), people write nonsense and pass them for laws. And people's life and liberty will be risked under them. It's a way of emasculating free speech and right to freedom of expression, whichever way you look at it. Yep. And being put in such loose way that if you want to make law, talk about people who incite violence or hatred against the people, a section of this. I will listen to you. But when you talk about his character, and that is why he said, if you feel that an opponent has defamed you, you have a right of action in thought. Sue the person for defamation. What is the business of the electorate? You have not even, the thing has not affected public safety or security. You're talking about the individual. People ran against Trump and said that Trump was a liar, that he was narcissistic, that he was, yes, he's a fraud. If it were Nigeria and that section was passed, I'm sure Trump would send so many people to jail. Yeah. And say he has lost touch with reality. What are we talking about? This is 2021. And the best we can come up with is that kind of legislation.
So again, like I said,
and 109 gentlemen and ladies maintain their public expense, waste their time on this. This
bill passed through the Senate. With how many political parties represented in that Senate?
I mean, this shock that people pass
so you
that,
now understand what I say.
Debating that in this age and time, when we should be talking about how to improve the economy, improve security challenges we're having, directing public resource to solving problems in much needed areas. We are talking about emasculating people's right to free speech. And that is why we can have the MBC Amendment Act and the whatever Amendment Act. Everything is targeted the right of people to free speech. The Americans say, I may not agree with you, but I will defend to the death your right to air your view. Yeah. And from every dissent, there's some common sense to be learned, even though we may not like it. We should not be seen to be very touchy about people saying things, because probably we said things to get to where we are. And we need to hear these things, both the ones we like and the ones we don't like. If nobody tells you that your mouth is smelling, probably if you have a smelly mouth, you may never know that there's need to take care of your dental hygiene.
Okay, sorry, let me just ask a question.
Very, very quickly, because we're running out of time. Okay. 30 seconds.
What is national interest? So you can't work out what is national interest. Has it been defined? Anywhere? You just nebulous things.
Very nebulous.
You see, what you need to do is to define from 1960 or let me say from 1970, right after the war, till today, we have not been able to define what national interest of Nigeria is. And that's at the root of the problem.
All right.
So think about that.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. Yes. Mr. Alpha Mosigwe, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, joining us, and Mr. Godson Okoye, National Chairman, United Democratic Party.
And remember, former presidential candidate too.
And the former presidential candidate, for
you.
That matter. Thank you so much, gentlemen,
well.
for joining us on the program today. And for you, our viewers back home, we want to thank you for investing your time with us. Discussions around the Electoral Amendment Act bill and the Electoral Offences Commission bill. It's a continuous one, and as Nigerians, we must be interested in the kind of laws that are made to guide our everyday living. My name is Imoni Amarere. Bye for now.